The signal from the dark. They thought we were weak, fragile, just another primitive species clinging to a dying planet. But they didn't understand what it means to be human. We don't break. We adapt. We survive. And when the galaxy came knocking, it wasn't ready for the answer. This is the story of how humanity changed everything. The Archean Collective's central chamber hadn't been this quiet in 12 millennia. 17 luminescent beings floated around the crystalline table, their normally vibrant skin patterns dulled to a faint glow. The Archean equivalent of ashen faces. The holographic display at the center of the table showed another system blinking out, another billion lives extinguished. First speaker Terrace broke the silence, her voice like wind through crystal. The Vega defense line has fallen. 3 billion souls lost. The evacuations were insufficient. Second speaker Malon's tendrils coiled tightly against his body. That's the 7th major defensive position in 30 cycles. Our most advanced weapons simply dissolve against their hulls. The Voidwalkers advanced toward the core systems. Third speaker Jalith observed, her usually melodic voice flat with despair. At current velocity, they will reach Archean Prime in 62 cycles. The display shifted, showing the inexorable advance of the Dark Fleet. The Voidwalkers had appeared from beyond the galactic rim 18 months ago. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. They simply consumed. World after world, system after system. Their ships absorbed energy weapons, and their hulls repaired themselves faster than physical projectiles could damage them. Perhaps, said 14th Speaker Corvus, his ancient eyes fixed on the devastation, it is time we consider the forbidden option. The chamber erupted in flashes of bioluminescent alarm. First Speaker Terrace's patterns pulsed with shock. You cannot mean. I do. Corvus interrupted, his skin displaying patterns not seen in the chamber for thousands of years. When all conventional options fail, when extinction looms, the ancient protocols are clear. The humans, whispered Terrace, the word itself seeming to dim the lights in the chamber. 3,000 years ago, the Archean Collective had discovered Earth. They had watched in horror as humans advanced from primitive tool users to nuclear-capable in mere millennia, a pace unprecedented in galactic history. More disturbing was humanity's capacity for both astonishing creativity and terrifying violence. After observing humanity's first global conflicts, the Collective had made a difficult decision. Earth was placed under quarantine. A containment field was established around Sol system. Humanity would be allowed to develop but contained to their home system until they evolved beyond their violent tendencies. The Archons left a single subspace beacon, to be activated only in the event of a threat to all sentient life. In exchange for containment, humanity would serve as the galaxy's last resort against extinction-level threats. No one had ever expected to use it. The protocols require unanimous consent, Terrace reminded them. One by one, the speakers registered their votes. The result was unanimous. The humans would be called. Deep beneath the capital city, Corvus and Terrace activated systems unused for millennia. The ancient transmitter hummed to life, sending a signal toward a small, unremarkable star system at the edge of the Orion Arm. Will they come? Asked Terrace, her patterns showing complex emotion. Corvus's skin rippled with uncertainty. The ancient protocols say they always do. Whether that benefits us remains to be seen. On Earth, Admiral Helena Chen was reviewing deployment options for the Jupiter defense platforms when her quantum-secured communicator pulsed with a signal not seen in the 3 centuries since its installation. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lips as she read the message on her screen. Pirar toxiodal omiga. Tivated. Quarantine, VRIHH authorized. 24 hours later, representatives from Earth's unified government gathered at the Global Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. The chamber buzzed with an energy not felt for generations. Ladies and gentlemen, began Chen, her weathered face betraying nothing of the sleepless night she'd spent preparing this briefing. 3,000 years ago, Humanity was quarantined to this solar system by a species called the Archons. Murmurs filled the room. Though this was ancient history taught to every schoolchild, hearing it discussed in an official military briefing made it suddenly immediate. They feared our capacity for violence, our rapid advancement, and our unpredictability. They built a containment field around our system and left us to our own devices, with one exception. She gestured to a holographic display showing the signal analysis. This is the beacon mentioned in the ancient protocols. The Archons are invoking the agreement made by our ancestors. They need our help. Defense Minister Okonkwo leaned forward. And we're supposed to help the very people who imprisoned us. Chen's expression remained neutral. The agreement was clear. In exchange for our containment, they would call upon us only in their most desperate hour. And if they did, we would be free, finished President Santiago. The containment field would be deactivated. Humanity would rejoin the galactic community. Chen nodded. The signal contains data on their enemy, something called the Void Walkers. The Archons have lost billions already. General Zhou studied the tactical displays. These Void Walker ships have energy absorption capabilities that make them nearly invulnerable to the Archons' weapons. But their propulsion systems and formation tactics suggest exploitable weaknesses. How soon can we mobilize? Asked the President. The Guardian fleet can be operational in 48 hours, Chen replied. We've been maintaining it for this very day. No one in the room needed to be reminded that humanity had spent the last 3 millennia preparing for exactly this moment. While officially complying with the quarantine, Earth had quietly built a military force designed to fight the very beings who had imprisoned them, or whatever might lie beyond. First Speaker Terrace watched in astonishment as the first human ships emerged from the Wormgate. They were brutally utilitarian, lacking the elegant curves of Archon vessels, bristling with weapon systems her analysts couldn't classify. They sent 50 ships, she noted, relieved at the modest number. Corvus studied the incoming data. No, they sent 50 different types of ships. Look, thousands are emerging now. On the command channel, a human voice crackled. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We receive your distress call. Deploy your remaining forces according to the tactical package we're transmitting. The counteroffensive begins in 8 hours. The Voidwalker command vessel identified the new arrivals with mild interest. These ships didn't match any known Archon design. Their energy signatures were chaotic, undisciplined. The Voidwalkers had consumed 17 species across 2 galaxies. These newcomers would be no different. When the human fleet accelerated to attack velocity, the Voidwalker command intelligence experienced an unfamiliar sensation: confusion. The approach was direct, nearly suicidal. No Archon fleet had attempted such a frontal assault since the early days of the conflict. The confusion turned to alarm when the human weapons made contact. Where Archon energy beams had been absorbed harmlessly, the humans used physical projectiles, simple mass draggers accelerating tungsten rods to near-relativistic speeds. But these weren't crude weapons. They were carefully calibrated to resonate at frequencies that disrupted the Voidwalkers' energy absorption fields. The Voidwalkers initiated their standard response: divide and isolate individual enemy ships, then overwhelm them with swarm tactics. The humans responded with electronic warfare that confused Voidwalker targeting systems, decoy drones that multiplied the apparent size of the human fleet tenfold, and combat maneuvers that seemed to defy conventional tactics. On the Archon command ship, Terrace watched in fascinated horror as the human fleet engaged the Voidwalker armada. They fight like nothing I've ever seen, she whispered. Corvus's skin patterns showed a complex mix of relief and dread. Now you understand why they were contained. Observe how they adapt mid-battle, how they sacrifice ships in calculated gambits. The archives say humans evolved as persistence predators. They understand violence and strategy in ways our kind never will. Will they honor their agreement when this is over? Asked Harris. If we survive, replied Corvus, that will be our next great challenge. The unexpected defenders. The Voidwalkers had never retreated, not once in their campaign of galactic consumption. Yet as the battle entered its third day, the unfamiliar command to withdraw rippled through their hive intelligence. It wasn't fear that motivated this unprecedented action, but something the Voidwalkers' collective consciousness had never needed to process before. Uncertainty. Human battle tactics defied prediction algorithms that had perfectly anticipated the responses of 17 other species, where the Archons had fought with elegant formations and precise energy weapons. Humans embraced chaos. Their ships would deliberately take damage to create openings. They employed weapons that seemed primitive alongside strategies of bewildering complexity. Most disturbing to the Voidwalker intelligence was that the humans appeared to be learning, adapting their tactics with each engagement. Their communications, easily intercepted but difficult to decode, contained what the Voidwalkers eventually recognized as laughter. Admiral Chen stood before the holographic display on her flagship, the UESS Dauntless. The tactical overlay showed Voidwalker forces retreating from the Procyon system, the third victory in 2 weeks. "They're pulling back to regroup," observed General Jao, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the display. "But they're not defeated. They're studying us." Chen nodded, "Which is exactly what we wanted. Every engagement teaches them to fear us and tells us more about them." She turned to the Archean representative, a luminescent being who called himself Liaison Corvus. "Your people said these Voidwalkers absorb energy and repair physical damage almost instantly. Yet our weapons are effective. Why?" Corvus's skin rippled with patterns of confusion. "We've analyzed your weapons. They are less advanced than ours in many ways. Yet they work when ours failed." Dr. Imani Wright, head of xenobiology, stepped forward. "It's because your weapons are too perfect, too predictable." All eyes turned to her. "The Voidwalkers evolved to counter consistent energy patterns. Your civilization has spent millennia perfecting stable, efficient energy weapons. But our weapons are messy, variable. We use everything from electromagnetic railguns to modified fusion torches. The Voidwalkers can't adapt to what they can't predict." "Controlled chaos," Chen said thoughtfully. "That's been humanity's speciality for our entire history." The next phase of the human counteroffensive was unlike anything the Archons had ever witnessed in 12,000 years of peacekeeping. Instead of consolidating their gains and establishing defensive positions, standard military doctrine throughout the galaxy, the humans pressed forward relentlessly. "You're pursuing them?" First Speaker Terrace asked incredulously during a strategic conference. "Our analysis suggests a defensive posture would be prudent while we rebuild our forces." Admiral Chen's holographic image shook her head. "With respect, First Speaker, defensive warfare is a losing proposition against an enemy like this. They're adaptive. Give them time, they'll find countermeasures to our weapons." "What do you propose instead?" asked Terrace. "We hunt them," Chen replied simply. "Humanity spent 3,000 years expecting to fight you, the beings who imprisoned us. We studied your containment field technology and developed countermeasures. We imagined every possible threat beyond our prison and planned accordingly." She gestured to a holographic map of the galaxy. "We've identified what we believe is their command hub based on communications patterns. We're not going to give them time to adapt. We're going to strike their center of coordination directly." What followed was a campaign unlike any in galactic history. Human ships utilized FTL jump patterns that bordered on suicidal, materializing dangerously close to Voidwalker positions. They deployed modified mining equipment that bored through the supposedly impenetrable hulls. When the Voidwalkers adapted to one approach, humans simply shifted to another. Most shocking to the Archons was humanity's willingness to sacrifice, not in the desperate last stands they had witnessed from other species, but in calculated, almost cold exchanges of assets for strategic advantage. "You lost 37 ships in that engagement," Terrace noted with horror after a particularly brutal battle. "And destroyed 78 of theirs, including a command node," Chen replied matter-of-factly. We call it acceptable losses. Every human aboard those ships knew the stakes and chose to be there. The concept was alien to the Archons, whose society was built on the preservation of all life at almost any cost. 3 months after humanity's emergence from quarantine, the combined human-Archon fleet arrived at the Voidwalker Command Hub, a massive structure orbiting a dying star at the galaxy's edge. Scans showed it was heavily defended by thousands of warships. Even with our combined fleets, a direct assault would be costly, Corvus observed in the final planning session. General Zhao smiled for the first time since the campaign began. Who said anything about a direct assault? The plan that unfolded was quintessentially human. While the main fleet engaged the Voidwalker defensive screen, a conventional tactic the enemy would expect, a small team of human specialists would infiltrate the command hub itself. We've analyzed their communication patterns, explained Captain Maya Rodriguez, who would lead the infiltration team. The Voidwalkers operate on a hive intelligence. Their ships are coordinated by command nodes, and all nodes link back to this hub. We believe a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse at the heart of their network will disrupt their entire command structure. If you're detected, there's no possibility of extraction, Chen warned. Rodriguez nodded. We know, Admiral. It's worth the risk. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries, while the main fleet engaged in what appeared to be a conventional, if desperate, assault. Rodriguez's team approached in a captured Voidwalker scout ship, broadcasting codes gleaned from previous engagements. The infiltration was not without cost. 3 of the 7 team members were lost securing the central core of the command hub, but when Captain Rodriguez activated the device, a surprisingly simple electromagnetic generator modified with elements of Voidwalker technology, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the battle, Voidwalker ships suddenly lost coordination. Some drifted aimlessly, others fired on their allies. The hive intelligence that had guided them across 2 galaxies fragmented into confusion. It's working, Terrace exclaimed on the command deck, her skin patterns flashing with hope for the first time in months. Press the advantage, ordered Chen. All ships, full assault. Don't give them time to recover. What had begun as a desperate defense became a rout. Without central coordination, the individual Voidwalker ships were still dangerous, but no longer operated as a cohesive force. Within hours, the battle was over. 2 weeks later, Admiral Chen stood before the Archon Collective, her dress uniform a stark contrast to the luminescent beings surrounding her. First Speaker Terrace formally announced the deactivation of Earth's containment field. Humanity is free to join the galactic community, she proclaimed. We offer our eternal gratitude and welcome you as equals. Chen nodded. We appreciate the sentiment, First Speaker. But before we discuss integration, there's the matter of the remaining Voidwalker forces. We've tracked scattered groups retreating toward the galactic rim. Our analysts believe we have decades before, began Terrace. We leave nothing to chance, Chen interrupted firmly. My fleet is preparing to pursue. We don't leave enemies at our backs. The chamber fell silent. You would hunt them to extinction? Asked Corvus, both horror and admiration in his patterns. Chen's expression remained neutral. We would ensure they never threaten sentient life again. Whether that means their extinction or containment depends on what we learn about them. As Chen departed, Terrace turned to Corvus, her skin pulsing with complex emotions. What have we unleashed upon the galaxy? Corvus watched the humans' retreating form. Exactly what the ancient protocols promised. Salvation and terror in equal measure. The humans have returned to the stars. He paused, his pattern shifting to a rarely seen configuration, the Archon expression of wry amusement. And the galaxy will never be the same. In the decades that followed, humanity expanded cautiously into nearby systems, establishing diplomatic relations with the various species of the Archon Collective. They brought with them art, music, literature, and military technology that transformed galactic defense doctrine. The Void Walkers were eventually tracked to their origin point beyond the galactic rim. What humanity found there changed their understanding of the threat and led to the first human Void Walker communication protocol, a development that would have been unthinkable to either the humans or Archons during the war. But that, as they say, is another story.